stuff. And just because I did those things doesn't mean that I'm maybe the most skilled person in this room. I saw some other hands in here. Can I see the hands of people that already have a license? All right, great. 1, 2, 3. Well, good. So you guys have got a good start. You've got people that know the deal. I brought this pad, and I'm going to set the mic down for a second. Okay. So. All right, just like that. As they say in music, eat the mic, right? All right, as you said, my name is Don Haddock. Donald is my birth name. I go by Donnie, Don, whatever. My wife calls me Buddy. I don't know what that's all about. Anyways, so I made up these little printouts. If somebody wants me to have them, I'm going to go through this and just show you the radios that I have. Important thing is that in 2021, I got my technician's license. And if some of you people took the test, does any of you recognize the name Gordon West? Okay, Gordon West is my neighbor. So that just happened to be a lucky thing, or not so lucky. He remembered me from CERT. I hadn't been in CERT since years. And he says, did you ever get your radio license? And I says, no, I didn't. He handed me his book right there. And at that moment, I promised I would do it, and I did. So, and as a thank you, he's my first QSO. If you know, you get QSO cards, any of you guys? Yeah, so Gordon he was my first contact. So I've got a Gordon QSO card. I've told by hams of all levels that are really jealous about that. But anyway, Gordon writes the book on the tech class, and I studied the book, but I can tell you that it's not necessary, and I studied the heck out of it because I'd never done anything like this before. A friend of mine did exactly what you did, went on radioprep.org or one of those things, and he memorized it, and we took the test the same day, and I missed 3, he missed 2. So the important thing is to get the information. So I'm going to go through and try to explain. If you don't know, this is more for the people that don't know. And at the end, if there's anything I get wrong, and people who are licensed, please let me know. Thank you. Okay, first off, I'm just going to go through the different radios that are available. I'm sure you guys have all seen these. Radio Shack and every place in the world has them. These are your FRS radios, which stands for Family Radio Service. They have very limited range, which means it's line of sight. So you can maybe get between buildings to go a block or something, but mostly it's like when you're at the fair, you want to keep track. And they work really good for small groups if you guys are doing an activity and all have the same radio and you all set up on the same channel. You can set up your comms and your kitchen people and your security people, and it's a good way to communicate, and they're really cheap. I think I noted in here that Amazon, you can buy like 6 of these, and they come with a 6 thing charger, and it's under like $40 for 6 radios and the charger. I mean, they're really cheap these days. And so that would be that's the first level. They work fine for what they do, but they are not. You don't need any kind of a license for it. Your children can use these. You could have in your kid's backpack. If you want them to go around the neighborhood, you can tell them to check in. They don't need a cell phone. They can use this. If you ever use these and you want to try them out, test them out in your area and find out what your range is and make notes of it so that you can designate a perimeter so you can see how far you're getting out. And as I will make clear as we go along here, the important thing is to always make sure that your radio is charged up. The worst thing you can have is in a real emergency, a shift event. I know there's another word for that. But if that happens and you go to grab your radio that you bought and it's in your closet and you think you're going to be able to do something, you're not. You're going to have to charge it up. And then also, all this is going to do is get you from one of these kind of radios to another radio like this in a short distance. So if it's not a small operation, it's not going to do anything for you. But it's handy for local neighborhood stuff, very small events, close proximity. It's called an FRS radio. And this is the one that's made by Baofeng. Some of you guys have probably heard that name before. And this is a really good little cheap radio. It works really well. I bought 6 of them around Christmas time, and I passed them out to some of my older neighbors. And I try to do regular nets where we just kind of contact each other, you know, and so I call them on the cell phone, and they're on the cell phone. Most of the time it's to remind them to charge their radio and that they should practice, but you know, it is what it is. So with that, I want to move on. The GMRS radios, I'm not sure if I brought a GMRS radio with me, but one of the GMRS radio is the next level up, and it stands for General Mobile Radio Service. And for a GMRS radio, you do need a license, but it's not a ham license. It's a GMRS by the FCC. They regulate all these things. But I think right now they said they were going to bring down to like $35, which is what your ham license costs. But I think it was 70. But the thing that's good about it is it's good for 10 years, okay? And your family can also use it once you've got legal with GMRS. It's a separate license. My call sign GMRS is WROT932. And you're supposed to say that just like at least once during the transmission and once when you leave. But it's pretty much the Wild West out there in the GMRS world. But the radios are better. You can get GMRS radios that are pre-programmed with the 22 channels that include your FRS and your GMRS radio channels. And you can, there's also, if you go to, you might want to write this down, it's called mygmrs.com. There are repeaters. Does anybody know what a repeater is? Okay, good. The radio can do. Okay, here's the deal. With all these radios, I said it's line of sight. Okay, on a radio that has a good antenna and a GMRS radio that has maybe 4 to 5 watts and sometimes more, you put a repeater on top of Mount Santiago. Okay, they'll just use this area as an example. There's an antenna farm at Signal Hill. There's a big antenna farm on Santiago Peak. And there are GMRS radio antenna repeaters that volunteers have put up there out of the goodness of their hearts. Sometimes they charge a fee of $30 a year to become a member to help maintain their equipment. But then you can have your radio and you become a member of the repeater club, right? And you can hit that repeater. So say your friend is in Irvine, right? And you need to talk to him on your radio. If you've got a good antenna and you can hit that repeater, get your radio programmed properly, you hit that repeater, you can talk to your friend in Irvine. And you can talk back and forth for distance. GMRS is really great. Your recreational people use it a lot. People, especially people that like 4-wheel drive and stuff, and they go out in the desert and stuff. It's really great for staying in contact with your people. In places like the desert, the ground's flat. So with a good GMRS radio, you can have that actual 3 to 5 mile range. When they say 5 to 10 miles is like when they selling points for GMRS radios or anything, that's if you're standing on the top of the mountain and I'm looking down to the beach and you're standing on the beach and I can almost see you, right? Then we can get a signal. But as you start to come down and buildings and structures and trees, stuff get in the way, you lose a lot. So GMRS has its limitations as well. Now, here's the most important part from my point of view, is that, I should mention this too. I want to show you guys this, just for kicks. This is my go bag for comms in the neighborhood. If there's an event that happens, I have. This is called a Heist battery. It's a 25-watt handheld radio with a fan in it. When you start to check this out, there's not very many 25-watt radios that are handheld. I have friends in the neighborhood of Costa Mesa, and we put antennas on our roofs, right? And we have these Heist radios, and we can communicate, and we have some people in vehicles, we can communicate all over Costa Mesa without a repeater because it was powerful radio, so we can talk antenna to antenna. And then as other people come into our area, they can call in. So if there's something going on, we've made a plan so that people will come into the area and we know which 2 houses is the closest, and we can communicate with each other. So no cell phones, everything's down, no electricity. We're able to communicate. And we've got most of Costa Mesa covered with this little setup using these Heist radios. They're expensive. Your GMRS radios, you get them for about $35, $40, a really good one. And then you got to get other stuff to go with it in some cases, but they're really good. Baofeng is one I would say. The UV5G is their GMRS radio. It's really good. This is You get 2 of these for about $209. And but the antenna is $150. The cable you run for it can be very expensive. So just 2 of us of our little tiny patriotic group, we set those antennas up on our roof so other people can get them. So I just wanted to mention that it's a good solution. We looked at a lot of things, and we had people in our group that did not want anything to do with radio taking a test. They're just not interested, whatever. This is a non-licensed radio. It's a business radio. So the thing that makes it unique is all you have to do is have a business license, which one of the guys in our group is. So then we just talk like we're conducting business when we use this radio. But it's there's no fee, there's no license, nothing. You just we created it ourselves. We've been using it for about a year. We haven't heard any other traffic coming in there, so it seems like it's going to be a good thing if we need it at the time. Now, here's where we move on to the most important part, in my opinion. Congratulations on getting your license. And I'm going to go over the radio that I have. I'll show you this Highs radio just so you guys can see how much bigger it is than the other radio. This is the one, 25 watts, and you can't see it, but right there in the back is a fan. So if it starts to get hot, it cools itself. So because it's got such a big, heavy battery. But with this antenna, and with mine set up in the house, I have mine connected to an antenna that goes on the roof, and this is my backup. But with this radio, I can drive around in my car all over Costa Mesa, and I just pull over. If you're inside a vehicle, as you guys know, if you've done radio, your radio washes out inside your car. You can't, because the car acts as like a Faraday cage. So I would test it, I'd get out of the car and talk. And we've tested it out, and they work really good for the purpose that we're using them for. But for me, being involved with the state of California, and then I got involved with CERT. You guys familiar with CERT? CERT is, some people are, all cities that I know of fair size have a CERT branch, whether it's Huntington Beach, Costa Mesa, Orange. It's the Community Emergency Response Team. And they usually work directly with the fire department, and they'll do help with search and rescue. They do training. They teach you how to build your to-go bags. Like myself, I was level 4, means I took a lot of Red Cross training, and that how you get your different levels. So you learn medical, you learn the whole gamut of stuff for disaster preparedness and for search and rescue and how to keep yourself safe. And that's when I was first introduced to radios, but never got licensed. Well, now I'm retired. I needed another something to do. And after Gordon taught me, then I got introduced to the people of MESAC. That's MESAC, that's Costa Mesa's ECOMS group. They work directly with police and fire. And because Gordon is involved with them, the volunteer group controls the comms. Now it's all that truncated, I hate to throw out terms, but truncated just basically means that a number of years ago, the police didn't want everybody and their brother with a Radio Shack scanner to listen to what they were doing or where they were going. So they encrypted it all and they put it on this truncated system so you can't hear what they're doing, right? But I thought, hey, I'm a patriot, I want to know what's going on in my city. So I joined as a volunteer with MESAC, and I'm good friends with Gordon, some of these guys. So I get into comms, I'm an auxiliary member, but I see how the soup's made and all that kind of stuff. And I also know that because I'm always the guy they know that's on comms and is listening to the Costa Mesa repeater. So if something's going on in the neighborhood, which is what we're all concerned about, I'll know it instantaneously because I'm connected to the radio, and my repeater goes directly to the roof of City Hall of Costa Mesa, as well as Santiago Peak. Now here's where the fun starts. And I really want you guys to be encouraged to get your license. And you don't have to study if you don't want to, but you'll have a whole lot of learning to do afterwards, and it's a continuing process. But it can be fun. And the thing, I recommend everybody look at the Baofeng, B-A-O-F-E-N-G, UV5R. UV5R is the model number. Baofeng makes a lot of different radios. I have too many of them. They've started to grow like gerbils, like those movies. I'll show you some pictures at the end. I've got a remote mobile station in each car. I have 3 radios with 3 different antennas in my garage. I also have an antenna that I put up in the backyard because what this does is allows me to use a bunch of various frequencies that maybe a lot of technicians, licensed people don't know. But there are some slivers of privileges that are the same as HF. The next level up, when you take, if you take a general license, which is a lot of studying, not much fun, but if you do it, opens up the vast wave of the entire spectrums. You can talk to people in Canada, Australia, and you don't need an antenna. It bounces on the water and off the ionosphere, and your signals go all over the world, and that's how radio really works. But here in Orange County, Costa Mesa, you guys really need to know this. This is what they call a repeater-rich area, which means that better than anywhere anyone else knows, you can hit a repeater once you get an antenna up on your roof. So all of my stations, that's what you call your radio station, I'm using my Baofeng. This is just so you guys know, this is a Faraday bag. It's the only thing I have like this. I have one for a cell phone, but I keep my backup radio in my little go bag because if something happens, I want to make sure that this radio will still work. Keeping it charged is fine, but if it gets zapped with a what do you call it, EMF or whatever,
EMP,
then it wouldn't matter anyway. This would basically, I could just throw it at people because it wouldn't do anything. But the Baofeng UV5R, let me take this out of the bag so you can see what it looks like. So that's all it is. If you want to pass this around, you could go ahead. This is a little antenna that actually works pretty good. It's a little pocket antenna, And just so you guys know, Amazon stocks the heck out of Baofeng stuff. You can get your Baofeng has their own presence in America, but this is a Chinese radio. But Amazon sells tons of them. This is what they come with, this little bitty antenna. And it's a little better than what I was talking about with the FRSs. Better antenna, better signal, but you're not going to hit a lot of distance, right? I might be able to talk to somebody at the end of my neighborhood, but it'll be super scratchy, okay? So what I did is but the thing that makes your licensed ham radios different is the antennas always removed, right? And you can get better antennas. Well, all I did is I put my antennas on the roof. I had guys like Gordon and these people help me spec this out. And I have 3 stations in my garage. They're just 3 different Baofengs on different antennas. And some of them are tri-band, some are dual band. So it opens up the realm. So I can talk to people, I have talked to people using this repeater-rich environment. I've talked to people in LA, Riverside, San Diego, all over the beach, Huntington Beach and everywhere, because I can hit a repeater and it carries over. And you saw the bio there with all those acronyms at the bottom. All that is that's either a radio club that owns repeaters. I paid the money, some are $30, some are $125 a year. That's the most expensive I've found. But I have access to the repeaters and their club environment. So you get free training and breakfasts, and you show up, and I can use the repeaters. So I'm able, from my house, from my truck, from my van, and from my bicycle, to communicate. I've ridden my bicycle, which I'll show you a picture. I just have a Baofeng strapped on the handlebars with a little antenna that goes up in front of a little extended tail. I've talked to the guys on Catalina Island. I've talked to Long Beach, because, and that's hitting their repeater, right? So the important thing here is it's really important to understand you don't have a plan if you don't have comms, if you don't have a way to communicate with each other. And we all, we have cell phones, we have all this modern everything, but if things do go south and you haven't put together a plan with your friends in your group and make some decisions about what radios you want to use and what radios will work best for your environment, have trained licensed people, because you cannot use a Baofeng radio unless you have a license. It's against the law, and the FCC will catch you, because every time you go on a repeater or you contact someone, you have to say your call sign, and you also, every 10 minutes, you're supposed to repeat your call sign again. If you go on there, somebody is always like a net control operator or somebody that runs that repeater, they're going to say, what's your call sign? Because some people get excited and they go, hi, it's Don, I'm looking for blah, 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 right?
And if they don't, they will report you, and in some cases they will, give any information they can, and they'll set them up, to track your signal and stuff. And the FCC will come in. They're not going to throw you under jail, but they will fine you, and they will probably take your radios away from you. And so you don't want to do that anyway, because the idea is in this whole thing is to keep a low profile. So that's why I say it's very important to get your license. Now, the other thing I said, ARRL.org, is the American Relay and Radio League. They have every kind of imaginable information, and they put out a newsletter about everything that has to do with radio. Of course, a lot of it is for the next level, which is called high frequency. That's the part I says where you don't need a repeater. You can just go radio to radio around the world. You still need height. You still need big, expensive antennas. Getting in the hobby, as I have, using these cheap radios and antennas. Like I said, I have a station. I have 3 station house, and I have 3 vehicles that I have a station as well, plus my hand carries. And I've probably got $1,000 into the hobby, okay? And that's all. But I put in a lot of energy and effort to figure out how to use every bit of this, because I don't want to pay $5,000 for a radio or put an antenna up on my house that looks like, everybody in the whole neighborhood knows I'm a radio guy. I don't want that. That's not, and maybe when I get older I will. That means I'm going to have to buy a ranch out in the middle of nowhere on top of a mountain, and then I'll be fine. But the idea for me is to keep costs down and to have fun with this hobby. I've learned as much as I can about the tech areas I can. And the important thing to remember is that without a license and you won't be able to communicate like you think you will. Okay, and then the last thing before I show the pictures, because I don't want to take too much of your time and I want to have some time for questions, is don't think that just because you buy a radio, that it's going to do anything for you, right? You have to keep it charged. You have to, always use it. You have to practice with it. When I got the Baofeng, in the digital world now, you can plug that little Baofeng radio into your laptop, and there's a program called Chirp, and you can program the radio in just a few seconds once you get all the cables figured out and you work that out. But I have figured that's not who I am. I mean, I did program a couple radios with Chirp, so I know how to do it, but I learned how to program it manually. And there's 126 channels in a Baofeng. I've programmed 2 radios by hand, and I can program it in the dark if I have to. I can tell the sound of the tones, and I can feel the buttons, so the reason for that is, say I'm down here, all my band plan has to do with the central area around me in Costa Mesa, which, Orange County, I already said LA and this and that, but say I want to go to San Diego, and I want to go to Arizona, or I want to go up to Northern California, but I still want to be able to do radio comms, right? All I got to do is go online, or I write it down ahead of time what the repeaters and the tones are. That's something you'll learn to get a license. And I don't need anything. I just click in those numbers, and now I'm talking to the repeater in Arizona, or I'm talking to the repeater in San Diego. So I'm sorry if my microphone management was bad. If anybody doesn't hear me, please let me know. But that's the thing I want to remind you is please think about it seriously. Test out. I bought all these radios at different levels because I wanted to know what the ups and downs were. The Baofeng is a great little radio, and I'll tell you an interesting story. When I first got on ham radio and I didn't know how to talk to people on the radio, which is a big part of this, you need to learn to listen because there's timing, so that people don't step on each other. It takes practice, just like any other skill. When I first started getting on there, I made a lot of mistakes because I get excited about a conversation, so I'd interrupt. Well, you learn that it's just like real people. It's just like if you two are talking, I go, oh, that's really cool. I kind of want to talk about that. Well, you guys are going to look at me and go, we don't want to talk to this guy. Why is he interrupting our conversation? It's the same thing. It's just real people. And so you just have to pay attention to that stuff, and you'll understand that the radio people will help you. But when I first got on there, and this was 2 years ago, August 2021, I got my license. In these 2 years, the radio community's mind has changed. I've watched it actually about the Baofeng radio. Yes, it's a cheap Chinese radio. Yes, your radio guys spend an arm and a leg and they're first born to buy the radios and antennas these big guys do. So then when I used to go on there, they go, oh, well, you sound really good, because I had this antenna on the roof. They go, what kind of radio you use? And I'd go, a Baofeng UV5R. You go, oh, you know, actually, it's a little scratchy. Maybe you should. And this went on forever. They'd embarrass me. They'd make me feel bad for using this radio, right? Now, you ask any ham what he's carrying in his bag, and they all got a couple of cheap Baofengs in there because they don't want to ruin their good radio if it rains and they drop it. So they're cheap radio, they can be replaced, learn to program them, and have fun with it. But the first thing you got to do, if you want to try GMRS, pay the $75 or whatever it is, and you can get you and your family started. And they make great radios, Baofeng UV, and there's other brands. The last thing I want to say is that, as you all know, if you do anything in this world, there's a wealth of knowledge and information on YouTube, right? You can ask any question. How do I program my Baofeng radio? You know, how do I put an antenna? What kind of an antenna? Any question you can think of, if you use YouTube, the way you word the question is how you get the answer. There's a wealth of information. I've learned almost everything on YouTube because, lo and behold, the guys at the next level, they don't want to teach you. They want you to get in there and buy all those expensive radios and join the club, right? The radio club. Wonderful people, but I'm not in that ball game. I don't got that kind of money. And if I'm going to spend that kind of money, I'm probably going to buy a little pickup truck. I'm not going to buy a radio. So with that, I'll go over these slides real quick so you can see what I got. There's just 12 pictures. I'll explain them real quick, and then if there's any questions or anything that you feel that I've glossed over, just ask. Okay, that's the first antenna that I built in my backyard. Somebody gave me that top piece. It's called a 5-element Yagi. It's for a 2-meter radio. This is a 10-meter radio. And that I strapped on with clamps. That's up 30 feet in my backyard. On a tripod that I had from when I was doing music, I still had some tripods for the speakers, so I bought some aluminum tubing, using a tripod for music, and crank it up in the yard. And I have sandbags, like a gaffer, on all the legs, because I didn't want to run guy lines. They call them guy lines to tie it off to the house. I didn't want to do that, and I also, when the weather's bad, I just lower it down and, you know, it's good to go. So that's the first antenna I built, and it is my backyard. Next. Okay, this is something I didn't talk about, but this is very super cool. This is a 10-meter channelized radio. It's made by a company called Radio Oddity. It's called a QT40 and does 10 meter. That doesn't really mean anything to you, but imagine a band as wide as this room, right? And you see all these little notch stressor, and that's the 10-meter band that goes all these frequencies, thousands and thousands of frequencies. Well, the FCC in their kind little heart opened up a sliver, which is from 28.3 to 28.5, and they gave that to the techs like us. They said, you guys can play around in you can stick your toe in the HF world, but only in this little sliver. Well, these guys built this radio for that sliver. And that antenna you saw, I built my own antenna. It's called a half-wave dipole antenna. I put it in the backyard. And my first contact, I'm not making this up, I've got witnesses, was Japan. And that is that when I was talking to, it's called the skip, where your signal skips across the water or whatever. I've had 100 contacts on this radio all over the world. And so what it did is, it took me a while, you know, I've been doing this for a couple years. I wanted to do everything I could with my tech license, and a really advanced ham told me, he says, you have more privileges than you think you do. There's some other slivers and two that I'm just starting to play around with, but this has become wonderful. You know, I talked to a guy on an island, which is called New Caledonia off the coast of Australia. And I don't know why the signal was so good that day, because usually it's a real short conversation, and these guys are running a kilowatt or 600 watts of power or whatever. That radio, I'm only running 40 watts. I don't know why this radio is so good, because they can hear me, but what happens if I talk too long, which is probably a good thing, it starts to fade out like this. And, you know, and then they go, well, it's been nice talking to you, and they bail and they go on to the next person. But, so that's what that is. That's a special little radio. It's really fun, and it's really given me something else to do with the hobby. Next. That's my van. There's the radio, there's the Baofeng that she's got right there. And there's that business radio. I have them linked to an antenna, and I have mag mount antennas. They're not very expensive. They're on the roof of my van. I have 2 of them. And so I can use the business radio if I'm dealing with my local friends and that. And the Baofeng, with the antenna, I'm hitting those repeaters, and I can drive anywhere around, and I can talk to people as far as Mount Wilson. I was surprised myself the other day. I was talking to a guy in Big Bear. That kind of surprised me. Usually I only hear scratchiness, and we were able to have a conversation. So, you know, when you think about it, just think that imagine yourself stranded and power's all off, and you don't know what to do, but you are a ham radio operator, and you get on there and you hear a friendly voice on there, and you say, because that's the thing about ham radio, it's a hobby and all this, and it's an art, call it what you want. But every time, if me and Don here are having a conversation on our radio, and we hear break or break, we stop talking, because that's what radios are for. They're for emergencies. That means somebody's got emergency traffic. We turn the radio over to them. They take over the repeater, and they start doing what they do. And you listen in, so you know what's going on, and you can be asked for help because they know that you're there. So that's it. Next picture, please. That's my bike mobile. I ride around all over Costa Mesa during the COVID because I was not going to wear a mask, and I was not going to do any of that stuff. And so I drove around, and of course there was nothing going on at the fairground. Well, I just threw my bike over that mountain there by the gate and started riding around, and all the guys that are in plant ops and all the guys there, because the fairgrounds are open, they're all wearing masks, and here's this guy on a bicycle zipping by. After a while, they're just waving at me. I became like a fixture. I got thrown out of there a couple times. That's a whole other story. I'm going to that. But I ride my bike around my neighborhood, around the fairgrounds, around City Hall, and I've always got a radio on if I need to communicate. Next picture. There's my old van. That was my wife's nice van in 2002. She has a new car. I bought her new tires, so I said I'm going to keep this thing. I'm going to drive the tires off it. Well, it's turned out now it's my comms van. There are problems with it. I went down to an event. These guys had it, my brakes locked up and smoke and fire and everything, but I fixed that since then. Next picture. That's me and my ham shack, which is the garage. And next picture. So this is how it's set up really. This is one only band. It's a Yaesu radio. It's a multi-band radio, but it's still all the bands that I could use. You can see the Baofengs, like I said, they're growing like gerbils. They're all over here. And then there's my laptop for programming if I need it. My band plan. I got a swivel chair. I spend time in there when my wife allows me. But at first she didn't know what the heck I was doing, and now she loves the hobby. She comes and listens when I'm on some of the nets. You know what a net is? Well, that's what's good about the repeaters. The repeater clubs, so that you can practice radio, they host nets. They have a net control operator. And so the format of communicating back and forth so that people don't step on each other, they do check-ins, and then they ask you questions, how are you doing this weekend or whatever, but it's a way to develop your skills. So that's what I do. I go onto nets, and that's how I learn to work the radio. Next. That's just another shot of it. Oh yeah, all my awards, you know, whatever. But this is the one I got from Gordon I'm the most proud of. Gordon First Contact Award, right there. All right, next page. Just so you guys know, because I am about the prepper side of things, so this is a Jackery power supply. We had a situation where, for whatever reason in their wisdom, Southern California Edison shut our power off for 3 days. They weren't right in a row, but it was completely down, right? So I've got these for radio and for emergencies and for camping, but it worked really good for a power outage. You know, to have a TV on it, you got it there if you need it. You can leave your refrigerators off for a couple days. It's not a problem. But if it goes beyond that, you know, you're going to need more power. So the Jackery radio is one I got. It's affordable. It's not a very big one, but it works for small things. Go ahead, next picture. This is a little Westinghouse generator. This is the one I use to charge up all those little power packs, you know, that you get. You guys know what I'm talking about? The little things for charging your cell phones or whatever. So I use this to keep those things charged up so that I can keep my radios and my telephones charged up. So that's a small one that works perfect for that kind of stuff, and they're very inexpensive. Next one. There I am building the antenna. And this is a picture of my QSL card. On the back is all the form stuff they send people, but As it turns out, my wife snapped that picture, and I didn't have anything better, so I just made that my own picture and made my QSL cards out of cardstock. So there you go. Yeah, KN6QDV, that's me. And then next, please. And this is the little pack I have. This is very super light. I showed you guys it real quickly. I mean, this doesn't weigh 8-10 pounds. This is if, say there's an earthquake, right? And so the police and fire are not coming. You know, that's what my CERT training, that I'm responsible for my neighbors in the area, right? I don't wear a green helmet and a vest anymore, but I can go around and make sure people are okay. And like I said, I've given radios to some of the neighbors for simple comms, but in here is basically medical stuff to stop bleeding, full-on medical stuff, 2 radios and things to charge it up in an area for snacks. So I could throw in a bottle of water and throw in this, and I can go and I can quickly either hop on my bike or walk around the neighborhood if the streets are too blocked out, and I can try to help people, and I can communicate and ask for help because I can communicate with the radio, the repeaters for Costa Mesa. So that's about it, I think. Is that the last one? Oh, this is on that antenna you saw I was clamping, that's the 10-meter one for that little radio that bounced all over the world. I said I had a 2-meter radio. This is a VHF radio. I won it in a contest from one of the repeater company clubs. I went to their picnic, and so I have this set up in the house. It's the only radio that I have in the house, but I ran the antenna under the door so it doesn't bother my wife, because I can sit in there and listen because I got the headphones on, and I can do radio in the house and not cause any problem. But anyway, that's a wonderful radio for 2-meter. It holds like 200 channels. And same thing with that antenna. It's kind of hard to explain, but it can spin around. You saw how it looked like a antenna, you know, like your grandma used to wiggle the rabbit ears, right, and try to make the TV work. Well, this thing, I can point it and adjust it so I can hit Catalina Island, or I can hit Mount Whitney, or I can hit Big Bear. So I just turn a little bit and I pick up their signals, and then I can communicate with them. So that's my long distance play toy. And I could, like I said, I can raise it way up on that antenna, but then if the wind's blowing, it's raining, I can lower it down, and I have a thing to wrap it in plastic so I can keep it from rusting and stuff. So anyways, I do believe that's about it. So if you guys, I hope I haven't bored you to death. It got dark in here while I was doing this now. And so any questions? Yes, oh, hang on.
If you have a question, please come up to the side so you can speak into the mic so everybody can hear it. So line up here, because I have some questions
Let's
too.
give Donnie a hand.
Yes, you did a great job. You reminded me of a lot of things. Okay.
Great, thank you. Well, there's a lot of information. So what I want to know is, what would you recommend just for a family? Because when things happen, maybe the kids are in school, college, not necessarily in the neighborhood, but what would you recommend for a family who's, you know, husband's at work, mom's doing her thing, and the kids are in high school? What radio would you recommend that could, that we can all get and that they can hear us? And then how do you get a repeater? Let me know how to about that repeater.
Okay, you all heard the question?
Yeah.
So now remember that I'm the lowest level licensed you can be. There's 2 levels above me. So other people that say we're at general level or amateur extra, which is the top level, that's like where the poobahs live. They really know their stuff. They might have a different thought. I'm talking about for what I do, and what I would do is what I've done. I would get familiar with the Baofeng radio and learn to use it and operate it, but you can't really operate it legally or do anything with it until you get your license. Once you get your license, there are so many clubs around that have repeaters. Yes, you can build a repeater, but then you're getting into money. Like you could have, if you had a club in a mountaintop that somebody lived on a ranch, you could build a repeater, and it could be a private repeater, it'd be your repeater. Still regulated by the FCC. You can't stop people from using the repeater because you can use the frequency, but it would be less known and it could be private. But repeaters aren't private. Everybody can hear your conversations, but like on Santiago Peak, there's probably 6 clubs that I know that have a repeater there. Catalina has the oldest repeater in Southern California on the island where the airport is. And between that and another repeater that they do have in Costa Mesa on, any guys know where Bethel Towers is? There's the only super high rise in Costa Mesa. Anyways, at the top of that is an antenna, and that Catalina Repeater Association, CARA, they own that one. So basically get licensed, then find out what club in your area has a repeater that you can hit, right? Now, it's called repeaterbook.com. It's on the internet, and the type you'd be looking for would be radios that do 2 meter or 70 centimeter. That's what the two dual bands are on your Baofeng or your smaller handheld radios. So you find those people, and then you find out what their frequency is for their repeater. And now the hard part is a lot of times is finding the tones, because they want to control that. But repeaterbook.com lists all that information in there. So that's one of the things every person has to learn, and why I say it's important to learn to program your own radio. Don't just count on being able to chirp it on your laptop, because then I'm looking at repeaterbook.com. I go, okay, 145-220, and then it's a 100 offset, or it's a negative offset with a tone of 100. Those are like the three things you have to put in there a certain way, and then you save it, and then boom, all of a sudden, if there's traffic, you'll hear that repeater, and if you programmed it right, you'll hit your button, a red light will come on, and when you let go, it'll go doo-doo, and it'll make a tone sound. And that tone sound tells you that you have hit the repeater. Then it's just a matter of learning how to communicate with your call sign, how to be patient, how to talk slowly, like I don't do, which is why it took me a while. And you develop a rapport with people on the radio. And then, so say you've done that, right? Now, your family, unless everybody in your family gets licensed, and you can get your kids licensed and stuff, the main thing is you'll be able to communicate and hear that stuff's going on, and hopefully you have an internal communication with your kids. But if there's no cell phone, those little FRS radios, and I'm just going to tell you something I shouldn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway, you all figure it out yourself, go ahead. This radio, I think it has 16 or 20 channels on it, right? And turn. Yeah, so you can hear the channels. So basically though, each one of those pre-programmed channels on this radio is a frequency, okay? Now your Baofeng radio, because of the FCC rules, is blocked from communicate. I could hear any communication on FRS radio in the area, I could hear it, but it's illegal to communicate. The FCC says that they don't want, because their Chinese radio, they made them so when they first came out that they could do FRS, they wanted to do everything. Do FRS, do GMRS. Well, the FCC went, no, you can't do that. You can't have these radios doing that. Well, as you all know, if you know anybody who does electronics, they figure a way around to do that. And on YouTube, it's on there how you do it. It basically, so there's 3 button pushes that you do when you turn on the radio one time, and it will come up and say factory if you've done it right. And now you can communicate with your kids on their FRS or the GMRS radio, right? But I wouldn't suggest doing that. I have my radio programmed to do that, honestly, but I've never used it. But if there's an emergency and there's trouble, right? It's that way they'd be able to hit, you'd be able to hit their radio and talk to them better than you would if you just had a bunch of those little radios by themselves like this, right? So it's a better radio, and it allows the GMRS, the FRS, and the ham legal, which is your 2 meter, 70 centimeter, UHF, VHF. You'd be able to, you can communicate with a Baofeng radio on all of those, right? But this little radio will never open up a repeater. It won't open up anything except that channel to that channel line of sight. So you would have to be close enough to talk to them anyway. So you could have they had these in their purse and or whatever in their backpack, and they kept them charged up. It's a viable option if you live close to the school, or you just get to the school and you're sitting in your car and you stand outside and you go, Tom, I'm here, and Tom knows that his mom's here. He doesn't have to use a cell phone or something like that. which might be an advantage in a stressful situation, and you don't want him flooding through with the other people or the other kids or something. So you can call him and say, meet me at the back of the ball field by the blah, 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 and you're not coming through your cell phone, you just radio to radio. But remember, it's line of sight, and it's a short distance. So does that answer your question? Next question?
So I wanted to find out how you get involved in the CERT program.
If any city, if you just Google CERT, or say CERT Costa Mesa, CERT is the acronym. CERT Huntington Beach has a big operations. They have training classes all the time. They're usually I'm sure Yorba would have a CERT team. And the people the thing that's great about CERT, now obviously they want you to volunteer and be part of the organization, so you practice search and rescue, you practice radio, you practice if there's a car accident, you practice cribbing and bracing, stuff that you need if stuff falls on people. A lot of medical stuff. The Red Cross works with CERT. The fire department works with CERT. And so you become a licensed CERT member. You get a nice card when you join and you do their stuff. And then they add to your level of CERT responsibility as you take in more classes. And every year you have to re-up. Which the way Costa Mesa re-ups is over on Placentia by Estancia High School. There's a fire department over there, and they have one of those towers, that the firemen always climb down and stuff. And they would stash dummies and smoke bombs and stuff in there, and we'd have to go in there, and this is like a high-rise thing. We had to go in there and rescue people and help people and like deal with dummies medically and stuff, and not get ourselves trapped or killed. Because that's the whole thing. They teach you is how to do search and rescue, how to be safe out there, how to help other people but not make yourself a victim. So, and every city's got one. You just ask.
I have 3 other questions. The other one is if you're living in an apartment, how do you do antennas?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I'm glad somebody asked that, because being in the radio clubs that I am, that's a big topic of conversation. It has its own area, and it's called HOA. HOA, if you live in an apartment or you live in a condo or a townhome, you're probably an HOA, or there's a controlling body that tells you everything you can do. And one of the things they're not going to allow you to do is put an antenna on your roof, because it ain't your roof, or they're not going to let you put it on the balcony, or they may not say anything, but then all it takes is one neighbor to complain that Tom's got an antenna and Bobby doesn't, and that party's over. So there's a whole thing of antenna technology that you can build your own antennas. You can find this stuff on YouTube. They're called HOA antennas, and they show you how to build antennas that will work inside your attic, or how to disguise them on a bush or a tree. Guys use fishing line, and they cast, like with a nut on the top of it, right? And they'll cast it over a tree, and the nut will fall down. I'm talking about like a metal nut, and land on the ground. And they'll tie an antenna to that, and they'll pull it back, and it'll be a small wire. You can hardly see it, but that's their antenna. And they build an antenna that's covertly disguised as a bush or a wire or hidden up in an attic. So if you have that situation, you want to get licensed, but you don't have anywhere you can put an antenna, or that the people that are either the managers of the HOA, then this is how you get around it. There's a whole cottage industry of HOA people building antennas and putting that information on YouTube.
Who can install a radio for your car? Because I have that one there, and then I have a car one, and I have no idea who can install it.
One of the things, because I do my own installs and they're not pretty, right? I understand that most, like say the people that do stereo installations, as long as you've got the radio and you've got the wiring, to them it's just another radio. When you're drilling holes in roofs and putting antennas and stuff like that, that's something you have to consider, and you want that professionally done. If you find a repeater club in the area, I guarantee there's a guy that will do that for free, because that's what they love doing, and they will help people put in antennas. But you've got to get to know them. They've got to trust you. It's like anything else. They're just not going to go, well, I'm not coming to your house, who are you? But the clubs will help the local stereo installers. You just go there and ask them, I want to install a ham radio. You tell them what they want. They'll either say, I can do it, or they'll refer you to somebody who can. Okay, once you're a licensed ham and you've got your first radio, and then you realize that you don't have any distance because you don't have an antenna on your roof, so you can't like hold up the radio and go, "Hey Tom," and Tom's over in Garden Grove, and it's like nothing's going to happen. You're not going to hear nothing. Then you put an antenna in the roof, and lo and behold, you can hear all kinds of stuff when you start to plug in these frequencies. So my suggestion, because of the friendliest guys, there's so many, but Catalina Amateur Repeater Association, their acronym is CARA. Once you're licensed and you're on there and you find out on repeaterbook.com, or you just go online and type in cara.radio, I think it is, and their whole website will come up. They want hams, they want to help you, they're really kind, they do all kinds of nets, and they do them at odd hours. They do a health and wellness net every day at 9 o'clock, Monday through Friday, 9 in the morning and 9 at night. And so people come on there to just tell what's going on with them. You might share a new recipe, they might share an antenna that they built, they might say my family's in town, whatever. It's a community, but what it is it's a controlled environment, so you learn how to communicate with other radio people, and then they'll, on their website, it will say if you're interested in membership. CARA is one, the Catalina Repeater Association. The biggest one in the area is the PAPA system, P-A-P-A, and I think it's papasystem.org. They have so many repeaters in California and the Southwest that once you're on one repeater, they're interlinked repeaters, which makes it very valuable, because as you drive down to San Diego, you just switch from 3 to 8 or whatever it is, and you can almost seamlessly traverse the state in a vehicle and still have communications. And then with an antenna like me, I've been able, on the PAPA system, that's the system that I used when I said I talked to somebody in San Diego. I've talked to somebody on Mount Wilson. Yeah, not on Mount Wilson. I've hit the Mount Wilson repeater, so I was able to communicate with a guy in Santa Paula or Ventura, because he's coming from a different angle, but we're both hitting the repeater. So that's how. Anything else? Yes. You want to do the question thing?
So I know you said YouTube is a good place to learn just about anything. Can you recommend any YouTube channels for someone like me just starting out? I don't have a ham radio, but I just want to get started.
I have a whole bunch of that stuff. I could make that available to you somehow. Basically, just there's some YouTube links that some of them I still use, and then some I've saved because I can forget stuff. So I've used it so much that I've saved all those different links for how to program your radio for a repeater, how to troubleshoot your radio, just simple how to button push, how they talk. I've got those, and I can get those to you, and then you can get them to anybody that wants. I'll make a list of them. Okay.
So say you're traveling, like these truckers, and they talk to each other. I know that they do. What do they use? And so you're traveling for days or miles. What do they use to talk to each other?
Now again, I can only speak from my experience, which isn't vast. I'm not a trucker, but you heard like that stuff, CB, good buddy, 10-4, blah, blah, blah. That's all the CB lingo. They have their own radios, they're CB radios, but every radio is a frequency, right? And they're on a certain band. 11 meters, just if you want to note that, 11 meters is the band that CB radios operate on. And I don't know how it's licensed, but I knew all the truckers use it. And you can, like that radio that I showed you, that's my 10-meter radio, the one that all over the world, it has a switch in it. I can switch it over to be a CB radio. And that type of design, if anybody's ever seen anybody that has CB radio, it probably looks a lot like a Radio Shack old school CB radio. And that's what they use. They're using a different lingo. They're using the 11-meter band, which is really huge, so that truckers can communicate not only just truck to truck, they can do the same thing. They communicate all over the world as well. So But I would just look into CB trucker radios. You can find used and good CB equipment. And then, you just got to find out how you're licensed. I honestly don't know. The other day it came up in a conversation because I says, well, I don't do 11 meter, I do 10 meter. They said for a tech ham, you can do data digital on 11 meter, but I'm not legally allowed to talk unless I'm licensed to do CB. Yes? Well, this guy's got a big list.
I take good notes.
Okay, I'll get it.
It's information rich. Okay, so these questions are all over the place. As far as the ham radio setup, the FRSs, GMRS, I'm reading a book right now called 1 Second After. It's about an EMP attack in America and what happens to our people and our nation after it happens. So you talked about a Faraday bag. Are these radios and the ham radios you're talking about, are they protected? Because all electronics, the way I understand it, will be destroyed by an EMP attack unless you have a tube radio.
From what I understand, you're absolutely correct. You're dealing, because your tube radios or the older stuff is all analog, and everything, including all the radios that you buy now, are digital. And so, yeah, they're the same problem as they say your TV's going to fry, computer communications are going to fry, and ham radios will go just like that. They're no different. They're less smart than a smartphone, but their electronics are the same. They won't hold together. So that's why I have only one radio that I can afford to keep protected. A lot of people who are much more of a prepper than that's another thing YouTube is great for, is you can learn how to build your own Faraday cages of protecting your equipment. Sometimes it's as simple as an aluminum trash can with some type of seal around it. Yeah, but there's different ones you can build. But then once you put your stuff in there, it's pretty much you put it in there, that's your backup pile of stuff, because you're not going to take it in and out and in and out, right? Apparently there are devices now that help certain vehicles of certain years will survive better than others. The newer stuff is probably going to be the first to fry.
So this next part is going to make people uncomfortable. So a lot of you know that I have kind of an edge on me when it comes to Democrats. And I say this, I'm going to tell you a quick, very, very quick story. I just met a very nice gentleman over there who was watching our meeting. I went over to meet him, and he wanted to know what the group was. And after I told him it was We the People. He wanted to know what that was. I said it's a Christian conservative group. He wanted to know what that meant. And it just kept farther and farther. And he's like, well, what does this all mean? What does it progress to? And I'm like, I go, well, I don't understand your question. And he goes, well, is this a Trump group? I go, yes, we have Trump supporters here. We're a constitutional group, the way the Constitution was written. Okay, so the point was, as soon as I said that, he said, I don't want to hear it then. I'm like, okay, I didn't want to get edgy with him and say, are you a Democrat? But when we talk about prepping, when we talk about emergency situations, when we talk about being on groups and with shared radio signals, the experiences that I've gone through as a patriot, Manuk was talking about this with Antifa. I don't want to be dealing with any of these slugs, these scumballs.
Baby killers.
And I've had enough fist fights with these people in stores over masking and other brainwashed idiots. So if I have to pull my people together to protect them, if we have to join together, I don't want some scumball Democrat on there ratting us out to the government. I want to know if there are groups that are patriot groups, that are secure groups away from these people that can be spying on us. Because I'll tell you right now, Antifa does have spies.
Yeah.
Everything you said, I agree with and understand wholeheartedly, 100%. That's why in Costa Mesa, some like-minded patriot friends of mine who are in the Costa Mesa area, so we're talking about a small area, one at a time, we've recruited people in the neighborhood that we were absolutely sure were true patriots and thought like us, and we invited them to, and this is what I'm doing this as a suggestion for you too. So 2 or 3 of us started this thing, right? And we started talking about comms and prepping and all that goes with that, Second Amendment stuff, everything. Some of the stuff you don't want to discuss with the wrong person. So we kind of do like a little personal vetting, and then somebody invites somebody there, and we have a meal together. That's pretty much it. And we have a conversation, and we get to know this neighbor. It's a neighbor. Might be 2 blocks away, it might be 2 miles away, but it's a neighbor that we're looking at being part of this group. If that goes well, then we talk about what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, what our core beliefs are, and what we want, the type of people we want, and we leave it up to them whether they want to be involved or not. And if they do, then periodically we have meetings that are only for that core group of people, and we invite professional people to come in and train us for different things that we want to do. Physical combat, 2A stuff where we've met at ranges and stuff like this. But we go there just a group of guys because we don't know the guy at the range. He might be a Democrat. You don't know. So we don't all trump up. We kind of like, there's nothing on me that tells you that I'm a Trump patriot, right? So, and then we go to that range and we get to know that guy. So it's really, really, truly up to you to figure out what kind of a group you want, develop your core values. There is books about Gray Man Group and stuff that you can research that has excellent material in it. When you start doing radio and you'll start hearing about PrepperNet, you'll hear about GhostNet. These are things that you can participate in the ham radio venue, and they pass information on, but you develop your own. As you guys know with the school board stuff, it's local. It's all local. Everything is local. So if you want a group of people that you can trust when the crap hits the fan, you need people that are close to you, that you know you can trust them, that you know they're going to show up, because everybody's going to do the same thing. The police and fire, if there's a disaster, something's wrong, they're going to take care of theirs first, right? You got to do the same thing, and you got to survive through how long that stage is. And the individual wild man who thinks he's a tough guy is the first to go, I guarantee you. You got to have a group of people, like-minded people that you can trust, and you've got to practice together, just like practicing your radio, practicing your Second Amendment skills. These are diminishing skills that you have to practice, and if you want to do it as a group and you want to be safe, that's what I suggest.
Very good answer.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Clapping. So, you mentioned about 30 minutes ago that on one of the channels you said you should talk like business. You said talk like business. So I was wondering if discussions were monitored, and that leads me to the other question, which is, can the government scramble these transmissions? If we have a Biden administration and he's been making clear threats towards patriots for the last couple of years about MAGA extremists. He mentioned F-15 jets, I think. So I'm wondering, how secure are these transmissions, and are they being monitored?
If you're working, as I do in so many of the patriot groups that I do, they work off battery backup systems and stuff. So if the system goes down, it's this guy's battery to this frequency. Yes, they can jam it, just like anything else. They could put a whistle, they could put a screamer or something on there and hit that frequency, right? But they can't scramble the whole band. It's worldwide, right? So in the radio community right now, and I'm, like I said, I'm basically new. I've been doing this for a couple years, but I'm on repeaters every day of the week, and I'm living the radio thing right now. And one of the things that's common in radio is there are people that are trolls. Yes, ham radio has trolls, and they come on there. So you're not allowed to play music. There's certain rules, right? So all of a sudden, this loud, obnoxious music will come on, or some guy just saying something stupid, like it's a recording, right? And it's annoying, and it's loud, and it's obnoxious. The rule is ignore them. It's just like if anytime you have a troll or anybody that's bugging you, if you have interaction with them, you're encouraging them to continue to do their bad behavior. Because these repeaters have choices and other channels and stuff, usually the person, they'll make all this noise and then they'll get tired, they'll go quiet, and as hams, we just pick up the conversation where we left off like it never happened. Well, and they don't get any love or any response or anybody, they can get a jolly out of it, they move on. And that's what we've discovered works best. There are some really, really obnoxious ones, and they are being tracked. I can tell you that I know that they catch people they catch people that, because they're breaking the law, they're breaking the FCC law by coming on there without a license and interfering with communications that are designed strictly for emergency.
Yeah.
I gotta ask my ride.
Oh, he'll have a few more minutes after that. If you have questions, we just want to have one more speaker come up, but give him a hand because great information. And you've only been doing that for 3 years.
August 2021.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So if you think you can't do this, and he's only been doing it for not even 3 years, come on, we can do it. I need to go to another speaker.
Okay, I just wanted to mention one thing, because if you look at my bio, there's nothing in there that says rocket scientist or technician. I played baseball and I was in plant operations and construction, but I figured out how to do this, so you can too.
That's all I do. If I could pass, anybody could. Okay, thank you very much. And he will be available for a little bit until his right needs to go home. And Nancy wanted to share. Yes, she and I were in the class together. I'm the one that failed. She passed. I did. It's okay. I accepted, but I finally passed. So she wants to share what her club is doing.
I thank you, Don. Great information. I know that we have the same problem in our group. We have Orange County, we're OC Preparedness Group, and we're doing some of the ham updates. But what we're doing, most people are not going to get their ham radio, unfortunately. It's just a lot of work, it's a lot of effort, we're all busy. And so what we're sort of recommending is get your GRMS, and especially if you have loved ones or you have kids. What we're doing is suggesting, the Midland has a great one, Midland, and I mean there's a lot of good operation companies out there that'll have GRMS that will attach to repeaters. And so we're checking into some repeaters now, well, and the repeaters are such where the GRMS becomes the repeater. So the more people that have a particular GRMS, okay, they use that and that becomes the repeater. So you have one, he's gonna call Steve, your GRMS becomes the repeater, right? And so it's a family license, everybody in your family, $35. And what we're suggesting is to get some Faraday bags, Don has, get your GRMS, program it, and then write an instruction in that bag, right? So if everything goes down, the person that you gave it to, whether it's your loved one or your child or a senior, has the instructions on that GRMS. It is charged up, and they know what frequency to call on, and you put down a time that you're going to call. And so we're going through all these instructions because getting a ham radio is a lot of work. And I mean, if you can get it, because if you use a ham radio and you get caught, I have seen fines up to $30,000. The FCC is not playing around with this. And if everything goes to hell in a handbasket, I mean, we're all gonna get the radios that we can, right? And to be able to communicate, but they do monitor everything. So don't think that even your cell phone, I mean, you gotta know that they're monitoring everything, right? Ham is no different.
Is it GRMS or GMRS?
Well, GMRS, yeah, sorry.
GMRS.
And we'll be teaching,
misses.
another class within our group, Orange
Yeah.
County Preparedness Group, on how to set yourself up with the lower level radios. At least get started with that. Really important to get that. And then graduate up. So, but Don, great information.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you recommend a company for Faraday bags? I have one, but
Go to disaster preparedness.
disasterprepared.com.
Yeah, disaster preparedness, it's a guy that's a NASA scientist and he's doing Faraday cages. He has, everything for your vehicle. He's doing, Farads for your home, for your electrical panels, and so, for your computers, everything. So that's where I go to get all my stuff.
Is that private or is he government?
He's in private service now.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it Orange County?
Disaster
called?
preparedness. He's called Mr. EMP is what you find on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is it true that a microwave operates as a Faraday cage?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it'll probably protect some, but and it really depends on what kind of VMP you're getting. I mean, there's different types, and I just think you probably want to get prepared with something to protect your sensitive equipment. But I wouldn't rely on a microwave. Yeah. So yeah.
Thank you, Donald, or Donnie.
Donnie or Don, whichever. Yeah, Don's good, Donnie's better, it doesn't matter. My friends call me Donnie, and, at work they call me Don. I don't think anybody calls me Donald except my mother. No.
Don, you can call me Don. If you don't
So,
call me AJ.
and I just wanted to mention to you, have you looked at mygmrs.com? Because there you can find out about repeaters. And I've joined the Crest Repeater Association, which is super good. The problem is and I'm an auxiliary member. They have a core member. They've got so many people, they've stopped taking people. So somebody has to build another repeater, but and you can find out that you can do that yourself. Anyways, that's all.
Thank you. They'll be around. I'm sure you might have questions of Nancy and Donald, Donnie, Don, and I can use all those names. And you guys, thank you so much. I'm going to end us in prayer. Please, what's that?
Looking for his little radio.
Oh, his radio that he passed around? Do you know? That's mine.
Hey, real quick,
Back there.
does the
Perfect.
GMRS need to be licensed?
Yes,
It
but
does.
it's zone license. The thing is what is it, $7 what they're gonna make it 30, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that correct?
You don't have to
But it's good
do
for
all
10
the
years,
hoops.
and it's good for your family.
Okay, good. That's
Don't have
the
to go
one.
through all the hoops like some of us. Okay, bust your tables. I'll end this in prayer. And again, you're welcome to stay and chat. Go back to the back. Honey's got items. Sylvia's got items in the back. Great Patriot people. We love them. Angie, do you have any eggs or anything?
No, she doesn't have any.
Huh? Oh, they're sold. Okay, all right. I'll pray. Father God, we thank you so much for this evening. We thank you for all the information shared. We thank you that we are continually learning of new people, new ways of being prepared, new ways of sharing talents and gifts. And Father, we pray for anyone in this group struggling. I know Don shared a little bit. He had a tough day today, and I just pray that you would lift him up, fill him with your encouragement, your spirit, Father. Anybody who's having a tough day today, Lord, let us just keep our eyes on you, knowing again, just as Dr. Barbara said, that you will close doors and open doors, and it's always for our good. And Father, sometimes we lose sight that you only want good things for us, but sometimes that means going through some trials, and it refines us. And Father, I know that over the years, many refinements that I've had has given me that peace that passes understanding. So I thank you for that. I thank you, God, for your faithfulness. I thank you that you have called us for such a time as this, because it's never been more exciting or challenging, but we always know if we keep our eyes on you, we'll be okay. We thank you, Lord, and just pray everybody gets home safe. And thank you for this group of people that are faithful to come and learn from each other and just share fellowship. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, you guys, have a safe drive home. Bust your tables.